First of all, the music. Second of all, the decorations. Oh my God. Do you not want to say anything about them? We're just going to pass right by all that.
Thank you, Jerome.
Beautifully done. Beautifully done. Beautifully done.
Thank you, Rachel.
Every single holiday is a feeling. Every single moment is meant to be a feeling. Everything that is brought to us, every single moment that life comes to us and says, here, I want to give you this. Whatever it is that the knock on the door is, whatever it is on the other end of the phone call, whatever it is we are dealing with, whatever it looks like, we are dealing with one thing and one thing only. The Buddhists will say if you dig down deep enough, you will realize that everything moves in one direction. We are dealing with one thing, just one thing. And once we get the hang of that we're dealing with life, we're dealing with the universe. We're dealing with the Tao. We're dealing with God. We're dealing with the one, the all in all. When we realize we are dealing with life and it comes to us directly in every single moment with whatever the experience in front of us is, we will recognize that it is not a mystery to figure out what God's will is for us. It's not meant to be a mystery to figure out what life is inviting us to do, what the world, what the earth, what the moment is calling for us to do, to be, to show up as. We're being grown. We're being evolved. And the moment we get the hang of being evolved, of being grown, of being brought to fruition like a totally ripe Harry and David pear, right? There are pears, and then there are Harry and David pears. And you might as well take off anything with sleeves on it, because the moment you bite into a Riviera Harry and David pear, it is at the point of fruition that the juices are running down your arm. That's the ripeness that we are being called to become. That's the sweetness that life is asking from us. That's what's happening to us in every single moment of our life. And we have got the clues of how to do it. We've been listening to this phrase. I've been hearing it my whole life, and so have you if you have been on a path. And the phrase, the teaching that's been around for 2,000 years, that Jesus put forth as his seminal teaching, is I am the light, and you are the light. And I think if you were on Jeopardy and you were asked this question, who said this, everybody would answer it. Who said, I am the light and you are the light? We not only get it, we understand it, we know it, we get it, we get it. We get what that means. We are the light. And yet, 2,000 years later, we are still approaching our life and every moment of it as if we are expected to do it all by ourselves. So there's this woman, and she is an extraordinary woman of faith. And every single Christmas, I turn to her and I read her book over again as if I hadn't read it before. Her name is Corrie ten Boom. And she went through the concentration camps not as a Jew, but as a woman who hid the Jews in her house. And when she was confronted, her and her family, about hiding the Jews in her house, they said, stop hiding the Jews. And if you stop hiding the Jews, we'll let you out from prison. And you don't have to be taken to the concentration camp. And she turned to them with her father, with her sister, and said, if you let us out of the police, right now, you let us right out of the cell right now, and we head home tomorrow morning, we're going to start hiding Jews again, because that's what our faith tells us to do. So off she goes to the concentration camp, and she experiences what anybody experiences in a place of such darkness and such forgetfulness. And this woman does something extraordinary. She holds on to the light, not just the you are the light, not just the I am the light. She holds on to this consciousness, be the light. And be the light is a verb, right? It's a very different thing than showing up in the moment and knowing that Jesus is the light. It's even beyond knowing, showing up in the moment, knowing that the light is in me. Being the light meant that you were so close to it, you're so connected to it, you're so dependent upon it. You turn to it in every single moment because you know that it is not possible to do this life that life gave us, that God gave us. It's not possible to do this life that God gave us without God. It is not possible to do this moment without that light of God that is in us, that is as us. We are of it. We are made of it. But here's the deal. Until we can do that thing called let there be light, and we change it to an affirmation of let me be light, we just got a great concept in our head that we are light and Jesus is light. And you know what? That happens to be true. It's completely accurate. There is nothing about it that is not grounded in the absolute reality. But if we are not in the flow of that light, tapping it, touching it, in relationship with it, and letting that light move us, we're showing up in the moment alone. So Corrie ten Boom, the only member of her family, she gets out of the concentration camp. She's let go. And she goes all around Europe and all around America, and she talks about one thing. She says, this light that is Jesus, this light that is Jesus, this light of this man that is forgiveness personified, this light that is Jesus will forgive you and wash you clean of any darkness that you have ever been in or committed. That's how powerful this light is. She says that is the light of Jesus. And she goes around all of Europe, and she finds herself in Munich, and this is her teaching, that there is no darkness, not even in the concentration camps, no darkness greater than the light. Oh my God, she's witnessed it, she's seen it, she's lived it. Nobody is more in authority on the power of the light of Jesus's light. And she's in Munich. She's standing just like I am. She gives a talk, and she gives a talk about this with all the fervor of a woman who is connected to that light that Jesus spoke about thousands of years ago that we get. We get it. We are the light. We get that. And she's standing there, and she's putting together her papers at the end of her talk. And up the aisle, headed towards her, is one of the SS officers that was in Ravensbrück, the very concentration camp that she was in. The very officer she remembered, who treated her sister who never left the camp, her sister harshly. Oh man, she knew this, and everything started flooding back to her. I mean, give me a break. We might have experienced betrayals in our life. We might have experienced difficulties in our life. But Corrie ten Boom takes the cake. Anybody who's had an experience of that level of depth, of darkness, of humanity, oh my God. You know she's got some roiling feelings going on inside of her, and she's watching this SS officer come right up to her. And she's in the middle of all her feelings. Now keep in mind, she's the woman who snuck a Bible. It is impossible that you could sneak anything into the camps. She snuck a Bible into the camp. So she could bring the Bible and its teachings in that light to people who were with her in the camp. And when she left the camp, she created a place not only for the survivors where they could go and heal. She created a place for the SS officers where they could go and heal. That's a level of highness, a click or two above what I thought I was capable of doing, faith-wise, forgiveness-wise. And yet, the human Corrie is standing behind her podium, her lectern, on the podium behind her lectern. This guy is coming towards her. She's got all these feelings inside of her, and he does something that just startles her. He puts out his hand. He says, "Fraulein." Let me read it to you. He says these words. He says, "How grateful I am for your message, Fraulein." He said, "And to think that, as you say, Jesus has washed my sins away." Just like that. Everything he had done was washed away. That's what she said, isn't it? Right? His hand then was thrust out to shake mine. And I who had preached so often to the people about the need to forgive, kept my hand at my side. Even as the angry, vengeful thoughts boiled through me, I saw them for what they were. Oh man, she prayed. She said, "Dear God, forgive me and help me to forgive him." I tried to smile. I struggled to raise my hand. And I couldn't. I felt nothing. Not the slightest spark of warmth or charity. And so again, I breathed a silent prayer. "Dear God, I cannot forgive him. I can't do this. Give me your forgiveness." Now here's the crazy thing. I had a lover and then a wife for 26 years. And after she made her transition out of her body, she put down the body, right? The expiration date is written somewhere on our body, but we can never find it. It's somewhere on the inside. When her point of expiration came and she laid down her body, the communication with her and I never actually stopped, because the presence of her is still presence, whether it is infused in a body or it's not infused in a body. Right? So it is just a presence that's now everywhere instead of embodied in a form. Right? That is the nature of what happens when we make the transition into our true form again, before we take the next body. And this is what, one of the things she said, like right off the bat, one of the things I heard so clearly was, ask for assistance until you feel ridiculous about how much you're asking for assistance. Right? What did she say? She said, ask for help and ask for help and ask for help and ask for help. And don't stop asking for help. Ask for help to tie your shoelaces. Ask for help to make your coffee. Ask for help to go drive your car. Ask for help to get out of bed in the morning. She said the one thing you need to do is fill your day with asking for help, because humans don't ask for help. Not only not nearly enough at all. We wait for moments to ask for help when we think, well, now would be a moment. I really could use some help. We wait for those dire moments instead of doing what the Tao Te Ching calls. Listen to how gorgeous this idea is that we could put into action on this very day when we're celebrating the light. It says practice. We are practicing the eternal light. We are practicing. It is the practice of eternal light. Eternal light isn't meant to be something that somebody carries, that we then follow. The eternal light is not even meant to be something that we know we are, because it's not enough. The eternal light is meant to be something that we practice, so that when your greatest fear comes up to you, the one man in the world you can't forgive, the one man who hurt your sister who you loved more than anybody in the world, when that man comes to you and wants to shake your hand at the fact that his sins are washed away, and didn't you just say those words? You know instinctively, Corey is a woman, just like everybody in this room, whom something happened to. And she walked through that experience as we walk through our experiences, all of them, every experience and every moment. But what she did was she knew she could not do her life that God gave her without God. Not just during the times of crisis, not just during the times of hardship, not just during the times of shock or awe. She was a woman who knew that God had given her life, and she wasn't meant to do her life without God, because it's not possible to do our life that God gives us in every moment without God. Ask for help. The soul of Carol said, ask for help until it's silly to ask for so much help, so you get the hang of how often heaven wants you to ask for help. Heaven wants you asking for help to become a way of being, to be the light. Let me be the light, because in that moment something else happens. When we declare we want to channel that light, we're used to channeling fear. We channel fear all the time. We channel anxiety all the time. We channel worry all the time. We channel despair, we channel darkness, we channel all the basement feelings that come through us. What we're being asked to do is to ask for help so we can begin the practice of being the eternal light. Because that uprising of energy, that turning of energy upward, that movement, that desire that we have to play a higher note than the note of fear that the collective consciousness is always playing. We can play fear. Anybody can play fear. It's the default note to play. The note of light. It requires us to practice. We have to practice the eternal light. Without the practice, it's a concept. And it's a beautiful concept and a true concept, but it doesn't help us. It doesn't help us in our everyday, which is why we walk around and we are told the world is filled with people who are now depressed and anxious all the time. All the time. And we can't wait to become cool until the world becomes cool. It doesn't work that way. So she prayed again. She prayed a second time. She turned to the light in her. The light in her. She prayed. She turned within and prayed again. The first time it didn't work. So she did it again. She didn't move from that place. And she said, I cannot forgive him. Give me your forgiveness. So right away, we see that this woman is showing us something about what the practice of light looks like. We don't have to wait for a dire moment. We don't have to wait for a dire moment. If we're asking for help all the time, we're practicing all the time. And what did she do? She did what Eric Butterworth said you need to do in moments like this. She turned inward. It's exactly what Eric Butterworth, the great teacher of unity in New York. Oh, I had such a privilege learning with him. What a teacher. What a legend. What a high consciousness he was in this movement. He said you turn away and you turn within to the source. The first thing you have to do is turn within, and that's what Corrie did. And then she breathed her prayer. She said, I breathed my prayer. And what is that? We're talking about light. And we're talking about our own light. That if we're in a moment that feels overwhelming or hard or difficult, we are asked to fan the flames of that light. And we do it every time we take a conscious breath. Every time we take a conscious breath, we are fanning the flame. She breathed her prayer out. She turned within, she breathed her prayer, she turned and she tended to the fire. She tended to the light. We tend to the light within, which is part of our practice. And then we stand still for a moment and we feel it. We feel the light. We don't move until we feel a connection. And when we feel it, it's a feeling. It's a movement of energy. We let ourselves stand still long enough to simply feel the movement of energy and follow where it leads. You turn to it. You tend to it with your breath like a bellows. Then you feel it. You stand still and you feel it. And then you follow where it leads. She did it a second time. She breathed this prayer out. Give me your forgiveness. She was asking the light to move through her and be the forgiveness she didn't have. And as I took his hand, here's what happened. As I took his hand, the most incredible thing happened. From my shoulder, along my arm, and through my hand, a current seemed to pass from me to him, while into my heart sprang a love for the stranger that almost overwhelmed me. And so I discovered something in that moment in Munich. It's not on our forgiveness, any more than on our goodness, that the world's healing hinges, but on God's, on the light. When God tells us to love our enemies, he gives, along with the command, the love itself. When we turn to this light and practice the eternal light by turning to it every time we need anything, when we turn to it, we are building a muscle. And we're building a muscle to access not our own puny forgiveness, not our own puny understanding, not our own puny ideas. We are opening ourselves, and what we're saying is, I need your forgiveness to move through me. I need your creativity. I need your ideas. I need your help. I need your help. I need your help. Sounds a lot like surrender, doesn't it? And when the burden of relief can be put down in thinking that we have to make everything happen, all that tension and anxiety that comes from thinking we have got to do God's work without God. We have to do God's moment without God. We have to do God's destiny without God. The burden of that falls away. And we recognize we are not here to figure this world out and to fix all our problems and the problems of the world. We are here to be the instrument through which the light itself can shine. We are here to be the instruments through which those higher divine notes can be played. And we do so not by waiting for an emergency. Instead, we emerge in each moment, whatever it is, and begin the practice tonight to turn to that inner light, to tend to the flame of it by breathing in and breathing out for a few moments until you can feel your own breath making the light of that light that you are begin to grow and swell and be felt, so you can then feel it. Because you're going to feel it. And when you feel it, you're going to be given everything you need to follow it. Corey wrote a book that was so small, but she felt that moment was a pivotal moment enough to include it in the book, because something happened in that moment. And something happens in our life. The very moment we understand that I am the light is not enough in the moment. It does not engage us. It's a good, true, accurate thought. And you are the light. It's beautiful, also true. But it does not touch this moment and move this moment. But let me be light. You start using that starting on this day of the light. Let me be light. And you let go of all the smaller requests. And you let me be light your request, so that you enter 2020 as the light. And that's your practice. Oh my God, it is not going to be long at all. If you're asking all day long for assistance with everything, Yogananda said, what good would God be if I didn't use God every moment of the day for everything? The practice of eternal light is what begins to make your light so shine that you can be someone who can forgive what appears to be the unforgivable. And you begin to respond to everything in your life the same way. Instead of your prayers saying, shrink my problem, your prayers are saying, grow my light. Because when your light is grown, you will see the problem in its proper perspective and be able to transcend it with grace. Let me be light, so that we do not ask to shrink life. We ask for our light to be grown. So let me close. Have faith. Follow your own shining. Be aware of your own awareness, and on the darkest nights you will not stumble, and on the brightest days you will not blink. This is called the practice of eternal light, and the sun in all its glory reveals just a passing world, but the inner light, your inner light, our inner light illumines eternity, and only that light can guide us home. Enough said.